This piece of Lisa is being brought to you by Mutual Security Credit Union. Find out more at mscu.com. If you opened up a newspaper today, you saw the headline that has been quickly changing throughout the day and that is grabbing your attention with a sick heart. And I'm talking, of course, about the little boy Libby Kletsky, who had disappeared just a couple of days ago, walking home the first day that he asked to walk home alone, his parents waiting for him a short walk away from school. He's only 8 years old, and unfortunately, very grim discovery of parts of his body in trash bags, a part of his body in a refrigerator in the home of this suspect who has virtually admitted that he is the person who killed this little boy in panic. I have invited to join us on the show a religious leader from our own community, Rabbi Hecht, who is a Hasidic man himself, because I expect that Rabbi Hecht will not only understand what the community is going through, but be able to give us insight into the kind of response that people of faith would have to such a horrific, violent thing to happen among their own. Welcome, Rabbi Hecht, to the Lisa Wexler Show today. Thanks for being with us on such short notice.
Sure, Lisa. It's an incredible story. It's heart-wrenching. And I'm reading what you have been reading. I'm hearing what you have been hearing. And it's just, there are no words to describe the pain and the shock. And there seems to be that this is a person who has a history of molesting children. And obviously is a very evil and disturbed individual, and has destroyed the life of an innocent child, his family, and the community. Lisa, I just got back from South Africa, married off a son.
Oh, congratulations to you.
And now, you read this story and hear about this, and the reaction on the Jewish websites, Jewish-oriented websites, community websites of Burough Park in Brooklyn, New York, are just rife with tremendous pain and sorrow, and people are speaking out and commenting and saying, obviously this is a 35-year-old individual perpetrator who has admitted, and the evidence is in his refrigerator. It's so macabre, it's so outlandish. Now, this individual doesn't come from nowhere. He's someone who's been walking the streets for years. And the consensus within the community of Burough Park, Brooklyn, and any right-thinking individual would be, why didn't someone say something to the authorities concerning such an individual? This individual, obviously, from what I'm reading, has a history of abuse, child abuse. And this person should have been taken off the streets long ago.
Yeah, this is news to me, Rabbi, because the latest news that I had read before I got on the air was that the deed itself had been committed by intestinal strangling, which is, I don't even understand that, squeezed, I guess, to death, and that the only prior evidence that we had seen in an earlier report was that he really didn't have much of a criminal record, but that his wife or his ex-wife, it was not clear to me which, had filed a restraining order against him in court, but again, the grounds for that were not stated. So you have more information than I.
Actually, I'm on a website that is usually very much focused on the Jewish community and the more observant Jewish community. It's called Was ist Neues, which means what is news.
Okay.
And there's like 175 comments already. I haven't gotten to the bottom of it. And the consensus is that this person does have some kind of a shady past and has been sheltered by various individuals over the years, and this is a terrible problem. This is a problem that is prevalent in all communities, whether they are openly observant, not observant. It crosses all genders. It crosses all faith communities. This is a problem. Child abuse has become more and more of an issue in the United States, and I believe there are a number of reasons for this. There's the prevalence of pornography and so on and so forth, and it just desensitizes people, and it allows one's imagination to go far astray from the norm, and until it becomes a total aberration. I mean, this is something that I think is very evil. This act, it just has brought the entire Burough Park community together to in total outrage, because they've been spending days, thousands of people have been spending their days and nights searching for little baby Kletsky.
Yeah.
And actually the child is a 9-year-old, not an 8-year-old.
Okay.
And there needs to be a solution. There can never be 100% a solution. But I believe that if you see something, say something. That's the consensus.
Rabbi, you are among a people who really and truly believe in a living God all day long. And the way you live your life is done always with that third eye out, that God is watching you, God is judging you, and that everything that can be made holy in this life ought to be made holy.
Correct.
And so my question for you, out of deep respect, is how do you, as a man of faith, counsel, begin to ask yourself and begin to aid and comfort people when something like this happens to them?
There are no words to give comfort. To those who have been directly affected, the only comfort that can be is showing care and concern. This is such a horrendous act. I don't see how words can comfort an individual except silence. Sometimes silence is the answer. But it cannot be a silence of disinterest. It needs to be the words of unity, words of we are here for you, and so on and so forth. But for those who have gone through this terrible tragedy, at this point, I don't see how words can minimize or bring comfort to the parents and to the siblings and to the people closest to this little boy.
And how do they ask themselves, why would God do something like this to me, to my son, to my family? Why would God allow such an inhumane act to happen to such an innocent little boy?
I have no answer. I have to be honest with you. I have no answer to this. I do believe in a living God. I do believe that everything is there's nothing hidden from God. I do not believe in the theory that things just happen and God is not aware. This is one of the great enigmas of life, of faith. And I don't even propose to give an answer to your question, because it's a very profound question, and it just boggles the imagination how a human being, someone who is called human being, could take the life of such an innocent child, will take the life of any individual, but a trusting 9-year-old. I mean, so there needs to be some kind of a preventive measure that our community here, Fairfield County, and all over,
yes,
we need to tell our children,
yes,
you can trust, but they say trust but verify. You can show recognition to strangers, but you cannot go with a stranger.
Right.
Children have to be told, if you don't know the person, you do not go. And there are all kinds of theories how to double check. Give your child a secret code. If the person doesn't have that secret code, don't go with them, even if they say they were sent by mommy or daddy or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, but this is such a heinous crime. And it happened within the community. You see, this was they put together the information through the cameras and so on and so forth. According to one report, an FBI agent came out crying, why did he have to kill him? This means this is a disturbed, deeply, deeply disturbed individual who did this. It's a very heinous crime. But I would say this, that this person obviously has some kind of a history, even though you don't know much more about the history. But I've been looking at the comments people in the community know. And they say, why was this person shielded? Now, I don't know the family, I don't know the perpetrator, but I can tell you one thing, that the emotion is very, very strong within the community right now in Burough Park.
Well, I have a friend who's a reporter for the Jewish Week, and she has been doing a series on the community of Hasidic. There's been in her view, and she's been reporting on this, a bit of a concerted effort to whitewash and protect, believe it or not, certain rabbis who have been accused. Now, I'm not saying they're rabbis of big congregations. Maybe they're rabbis in name only in terms of having a certain amount of learning. But there are people, and they have been basically shipped off to Israel. some of them and protected and basically harbored like fugitives and not had to face accusations of significant kinds of this kind of child molestation, and maybe some of the veils from those other individuals will come off now.
I would add that when a child is molested, it's not just, even if the child is not hurt physically, the child is damaged for life. It's an emotional trauma that I don't know of any person who can really overcome, something where their innocence has been sullied by an adult.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this problem is prevalent within society.
Oh, yeah.
And the Talmud says a very interesting statement. That when it comes to, let's not, misconstrue it, but when it comes to sexual matters, there are no, what shall I say, beyond suspect. In other words, there needs to be checks and balances for each and every individual, how they conduct themselves and interact with others. And a community is responsible. A community is morally responsible. Every community, of every faith or non-faith, they are responsible to protect the children amongst them. And if you know of an individual who is acting improperly and is doing these kinds of things, they have to be reported to the authorities. I think that there's a moral imperative, there's a halachic or Jewish law imperative to do this, because this is a terrible thing, and it's a horrible crime. And unfortunately, it's always hidden. People don't want to speak about it. People don't want to come out and accuse. They feel that their reputations perhaps will be in some way
tarnished. Yeah.
But we got to do it for the children.
Yes.
And I cannot judge anyone else for being silent, but I would say one thing. If heaven forfend, I find out a situation and I'm aware of a situation, I will have to report it to the authorities, because you have to protect the child. And there's no reason in the world why the professional law, the law, the authorities, those who are to police and so on and so forth, that they cannot handle. They could handle the situation.
Oh, yes.
If not able to do something, at least they can notify.
Well, sunlight corrects an awful lot of abuses. In other words, at least that person stops doing it for a while anyway. It's a very big problem. I've had Linda Fairstein on. She's the former DA in charge of the crimes, the sexual victims. She was the first SVU person in New York City. And she basically said that unfortunately these warped individuals have virtually no chance themselves of being cured.
You anticipated what I was going to say, and that's the medical literature, the psychiatric literature. This is something which is, literally almost impossible to cure. So by harboring or protecting these molesters, we are doing a terrible crime against our children.
Yeah, these people have to be segregated and kept away. Do you know that today I read for the first time Connecticut is actually cracking down on allowing pornography to its own prisoners? I had no idea that our jailmates were entitled to look at pornography.
Well, this is a totally another issue. I would say it's feeding the beast.
Yes, it feeds the beast, exactly, yeah.
When a person becomes desensitized, initially they say, I'm not doing anything wrong. But what is happening to the psyche of the individual through this kind of activity, we become desensitized. We become less of a full, functioning, proper, ethical, moral human being.
Yeah.
And so I only pointed out one area which may have contributed
yes,
to
I understand.
Kind of situation.
Right.
But I think the community has a responsibility, first and foremost, to speak up and to protect the child. And such an individual who is being identified and living in the Kensington community of a suburb of Burough Park, a few blocks out of the heart of Burough Park, these types of individuals have to be exposed and put away, because there's no other way to protect the child. They cannot live amongst where children are. It's like having a drug pusher within 500 feet of a school where you have impressionable children.
Right.
Society understands there are certain laws that we impose, and we do this in order to protect our children.
Rabbi Hecht, thank you. you very much for being on the Lisa Wexler Show today. And my condolences. If you're in touch with the family, please send the most heartfelt sympathy and condolences from so many people, certainly in our own community. You certainly do not have to be a religious Jew to have your heart break for this family. So thank you very much for being on this show today.
You've just been listening to A Piece of Lisa. If you'd like to listen to the whole 2-hour show, please go to lisawexler.com where all shows are archived. And do follow me on Twitter at Lisa Wexler. Thanks for listening.